teenager killed a husband and wife, and
evil, evil, evil monster.
And the text was, I'm offering you the chance to eat me alive. Needs a genuine victim.
10 shocking courtroom moments from Cannibals and Killers. This video examines 10 of the most shocking criminal cases ever presented in modern courtrooms. Each case involves extreme violence, disturbing psychology, or behavior so unusual that it challenged judges, prosecutors, and forensic teams. You'll hear what happened, how the courts responded, and most importantly, how these individuals reacted when the verdict and sentencing finally arrived. Case 1. Armin Meiwes, 41, Rotenburg, Germany.
My name, Armin Meiwes. I was born 1961. I'm computer engineer from Rotenburg, Germany. I killed a man, slaughtered him and ate him. Since then, he is always with me.
Convicted of murder and desecration of a corpse, the trial of Armin Meiwes became one of the most internationally debated courtroom spectacles due to its unprecedented level of consent. Meiwes posted online ads under the category Horror and Nervous Thrills, searching for a volunteer willing to be killed and eaten. That volunteer was Bernd-Jürgen Brandes, who willingly traveled to Meiwes' home.
Emailing and chatting on the internet since January, and we talked about exactly what he would.
The courtroom listened in disbelief as prosecutors detailed the extensive digital footprint Meiwes left behind. Over 1,700 diskettes, 228 videotapes, 221 hard drives, nearly 400 online conversations with individuals from the cannibal community.
This is a very good example of a man who lived a double life.
The slaughter room, found in an upstairs attic, was equipped with hooks, pulleys, cages, and a butcher's table.
On the other hand, he was a monster in the media who was dining on human flesh.
During trial, Meiwes sat upright, responding to questions with a polite, composed tone. Observers noted how unnervingly calm he was, described by reporters as emotionally detached, but oddly courteous. The defense presented him as cooperative and nonviolent outside this incident. The prosecution countered sharply, stressing that Meiwes recorded the killing on a 4-hour video, demonstrating premeditation. When the judge delivered the life sentence, Meiwes remained expressionless. His only visible reaction was a slight nod, as if he had expected the outcome. He thanked the court staff before being led away, an unemotional response that stunned several attendees. While Meiwes claimed the killing was consensual, the next case involved a defendant whose actions were attributed to a complete mental break. Case 2, Austin Harrouff, 25, Martin County, Florida.
A notorious and brutal murder case coming to a close today.
Found not guilty by reason of insanity for double murder and attempted murder. The courtroom was emotionally charged when the details of the Austin Harrouff case were presented. In 2016, Harrouff attacked a couple in their garage.
911, do you need fire, police, or medical?
Police and medical. Young man beating up a woman across the street.
Okay, are they outside or in a house?
It's in a garage.
Killing both and attempting to eat the male victim's face. Deputies testified that Harrouff was growling, grunting, and biting flesh.
He was intertwined, his arm wrapped around the male, and he had his fingers like a fish hook in his mouth, pulling his face off.
Even as officers used tasers and a police dog to pull him away. During the hearings, Harrouff often appeared dazed, staring downward, fidgeting, or avoiding eye contact. His body language suggested confusion and emotional withdrawal. On several occasions, he appeared to tear up when families spoke. Family members of the victims expressed outrage. One relative said, "I didn't know you could commit something like this and not be held criminally responsible." Psychiatrists testified he suffered a severe psychotic episode, not drug-induced, and had lost touch with reality entirely. When the judge delivered the verdict, not guilty by reason of insanity, Harrouff quietly lowered his head. The victims' families cried out.
Your family deserves to suffer the way my family suffers.
Others shook their heads in disbelief. Harrouff's reaction was subdued, almost absent, as deputies escorted him to a mental health facility rather than a prison. While Harrouff's trial focused on a loss of reality, the next case involved a killer who demonstrated cold, calculated control over every step of his crimes. Case 3. Jeffrey Dahmer, 31, Milwaukee, Wisconsin. Convicted of 16 counts of first-degree murder.
His killing field was Milwaukee, and he got away with murder for more than a decade. But how could any of this happen? For the first time ever?
Jeffrey Dahmer's 1992 trial remains one of the most chilling courtroom experiences ever documented. Investigators presented the horrific contents of Dahmer's apartment: severed heads, preserved organs, a 57-gallon acid drum, human remains stored in refrigerators, dozens of dismemberment photos.
And there were human heads and bones and things all over every drawer we opened, every cabinet we opened. There was body parts.
The courtroom was silent as prosecutors described Dahmer's intent to build a shrine from his victims' skulls. Throughout testimony, Dahmer remained eerily still. He rarely reacted, rarely looked up, and often appeared lost in thought. This complete lack of emotion disturbed many attending the trial, including family members of victims who described feeling ignored by Dahmer's blank stare. His defense argued mental illness. Prosecutors argued premeditation and control. When the judge sentenced Dahmer to 16 consecutive life sentences, Dahmer nodded slightly, maintaining calm. He expressed a short statement of remorse, saying he wished death for himself.
I didn't ever want freedom. Frankly, I wanted death for myself. And if I could give my life right now to bring their loved ones back, I would do it.
Observers noted a strange combination of resignation and detachment. While Dahmer appeared emotionally distant, our next case involved a sudden, delusional attack that had the courtroom trying to understand what pushed a woman to violence. Case 4. Allison Weaver, Michigan. Convicted of assault with intent to maim, strangulation, and CSC. In 2019, Allison Weaver attacked a close friend, strangling her, assaulting her, and biting off the part of her ear.
That they were having consensual sex, and that Miss was a vampire, and that she, Ms. Weaver, was a wolf.
The victim testified that Weaver believed she was a wolf and accused the victim of being a vampire. During testimony, Weaver often cried and covered her face. Her hands shook whenever the victim described the attack.
And I was like, Allison, what are you doing? And she just kept giving me this look, like with her head going back and forth. And I was like, what are you doing? And she just lunged at me.
The courtroom noted her distraught posture, leaning forward with her head down. Weaver apologized multiple times, at one point saying she felt really horrible.
I would like to apologize to the victim and to her family, but also to my family as well. I do feel really, really horrible about what happened.
And didn't understand her behavior. When the judge issued a 10 to 15-year sentence, Weaver broke down in tears. Her posture collapsed, and she sobbed into her hands as the judge emphasized the victim's trauma and the severity of the injuries. While Weaver's attack was rooted in delusion, the next case involved a perpetrator who planned his crime with chilling precision. Case 5. Kevin Underwood, 26, Purcell, Oklahoma. Convicted of first-degree murder, Kevin Underwood's case was characterized by cold planning.
You know, it's all kind of a blur once it started happening. I hit her, I think 3 times, maybe 4. It took me probably 15-20 minutes to kill her.
He confessed to long-standing fantasies of killing and eating a person. His victim, 10-year-old Jamie Bolin, was lured into his apartment where evidence of premeditation filled the scene. Hacksaw, rope, duct tape, swords, knives, a plastic tub containing the body. During his confession, Underwood stated, "It started off as cannibalism. I wanted to know what it tasted like."
And then I was going to start burning them and cooking them. I was probably going to keep the skull. But then, you know, I was going to pretty much eat everything.
Underwood was described as emotionless throughout most of the trial. Speaking quietly and maintaining a blank stare, he showed little reaction when graphic details were presented. His calm voice, while confessing, unsettled many in the courtroom. When the judge delivered the death sentence, Underwood looked down, blinked several times, and nodded. There were no outbursts, no emotional breakdowns, only a subdued acceptance.
That I deserve to for what I did. And I would like to apologize to the victim's family, to my own family.
It was one of the few moments when tension in the courtroom visibly shifted, as spectators expected far more reaction than they received. While Underwood's crime was premeditated, the next case was explosive and committed in front of horrified witnesses. Case 6, Colin Czech, 29, Las Vegas, Nevada, convicted of murder, attempted murder, and mayhem. In 2023, Colin Czech startled Las Vegas with a brutal and unprovoked attack. At a bus stop, he killed Kenneth Brown and began biting his face. Witnesses described Czech as if disconnected from reality.
Oh my God! I don't know what the.
Is he still speeding him?
Yeah, I don't know what the going to this man. That's some weird.
A convenience store worker also testified about being attacked earlier that day, explaining how Czech tried stabbing him in the head. During hearings, Czech frequently stared blankly at the judge. At times, he seemed confused by the proceedings. When witness testimony described him munching on the victim's face, Czech's expression remained unchanged. When convicted, Czech leaned back in his chair, looked around slowly, and returned to staring ahead. He showed no visible emotion. The judge noted his lack of reaction directly, calling the crime depraved and inhuman. The next case centers around a defendant who believed his actions were religiously ordained, adding a layer of spiritual delusion to the violence. Case 7, Jason Thornburg, 44, Fort Worth, Texas.
Jason Thornburg case has been made, and this is about whether he will get the death penalty or not for killing 3 people in Euless.
Let's go ahead and listen in.
Convicted of capital murder. In 2021, firefighters found 3 burning bodies inside a dumpster.
The bodies of 3 people were discovered dismembered and burning September 22nd inside a dumpster outside a business in West Fort Worth.
The investigation led to the motel room of Jason Thornburg, who admitted to performing what he called human sacrifices to God. He described a sense of destiny and claimed biblical passages guided him. Thornburg sat upright throughout the trial, speaking calmly and clearly. When describing his motive, he was matter-of-fact, explaining his belief he was fulfilling divine orders. His lack of emotional response unsettled the courtroom.
A Tarrant County jury decided a man who murdered 3 people and set their bodies on fire should get the death penalty for his crimes.
When the judge sentenced him to death, Thornburg stared straight ahead without blinking.
On the day set for the execution, by intravenous injection of a substance or substances in a lethal quantity sufficient to cause death, and until you, Jason Allen Thornburg, are dead.
Reporters noted he appeared detached, almost serene, showing no signs of fear or surprise. From religious delusion, we move to a case driven by severe identity-based delusions. Case 8, Mark David Latunski, 52, Bennington Township, Michigan, convicted of first-degree premeditated murder and mutilation of a dead body. Mark David Latunski's case remains one of the most gruesome and unsettling murder investigations in recent Michigan history. In December 2019, 25-year-old Kevin Bacon, a student and hairstylist, matched with Latunski on the dating app Grindr. On Christmas Eve, Bacon drove to Latunski's home in Bennington Township and texted his roommate that he wasn't sure when he'd be back. When he failed to show up for Christmas breakfast, the next morning, his family reported him missing. Investigators quickly began retracing his digital footprint, using Grindr to track the last location recorded on his account. On December 28th, officers arrived at Latunski's home. He answered the door and allowed them inside without resistance. In the basement, police discovered Bacon's mutilated body hanging upside down by the ankles from the rafters. The scene was horrific, and Latunski immediately admitted to what he had done. He calmly described stabbing Bacon in the back, slitting his throat, and cutting off part of his genitalia.
After Mr. Bacon was dead, did you remove part of his body, specifically his testicles?
Yes, I did.
Did you move those testicles to the kitchen?
Yes, I did.
Which he said he consumed. He told investigators he drained the body of blood intended to turn Bacon's muscles into jerky and planned to grind his bones into bone meal for gardening. A dehydrator he ordered for this purpose was intercepted in the mail after the murder. As detectives looked deeper into Latunski's history, they found a troubling pattern. Only a month before the killing, police had been called to his home after a man wearing a leather kilt ran from the house screaming for help, with Latunski chasing him. The man chose not to press charges. Records also showed that Latunski faced kidnapping charges in 2013, but the case was dismissed after questions about his mental competency. These incidents painted a portrait of someone who had long struggled with severe mental illness, raising questions about missed opportunities for intervention. The legal proceedings that followed were complex. In early 2020, Latunski was found incompetent to stand trial after claiming he was Edgar Thomas Hill, a member of Welsh nobility. After months of psychiatric treatment, doctors later declared him competent, allowing the case to move forward. His defense team prepared an insanity defense and argued he should be placed in a secure psychiatric facility rather than a prison. But in September 2022, just weeks before trial, Latunski unexpectedly pleaded guilty to open murder and mutilation of a dead body, going against his attorney's strategy. A degree hearing was held to determine the severity of the charge. The defense claimed the murder lacked premeditation, pointing out Latunski's delusions and the fact he let police into his home without hesitation. Prosecutors argued the opposite, highlighting his purchase of the dehydrator and the methodical steps he described to investigators. After 2 days of testimony, Judge Matthew Stewart ruled that the killing was one of cold calculation, determining it to be first-degree premeditated murder. On December 15, 2022, Mark David Latunski was sentenced to life in prison without the possibility of parole, with an additional term for body mutilation. The ruling brought an end to a case defined by its brutality, its psychological complexity, and the devastating impact it had on the family of Kevin Bacon. Case 9. Joseph Oberhansley, 33, Jeffersonville, Indiana.
An Indiana man accused of killing his ex-girlfriend and eating parts of her body is ruled not mentally competent.
Convicted of murder, abuse of a corpse, and burglary. Years before the murder, Oberhansley shot his girlfriend and survived, the bullet remaining embedded in his brain.
And police say when they came to this home this morning, Oberhansley is the one who answered the door. They went inside and found the woman's body.
Experts testified this caused a partial lobotomy, affecting his impulse control. Despite his history, he was released into the community. In 2014, he killed Tammy Jo Blanton, mutilated her body, and consumed organs. Oberhansley frequently interrupted proceedings, claiming innocence, rejecting police reports, and telling the judge he was being framed. His outbursts were unpredictable, sometimes angry, sometimes bizarrely calm. When given life in prison, Oberhansley shook his head repeatedly and muttered to himself.
What do you say about the death penalty?
They're holding back all my mail. I haven't been able to receive
What do you say about the
mail,
death penalty?
Any phone calls, letters, anything. So for all my family and friends out there.
He attempted to speak over the judge, insisting he was not responsible. Deputies restrained him as he continued protesting his sentence. The final case returns to Germany for the courtroom fallout following the Meiwes investigation. Case 10, Tyrese Smith, 35, Bridgeport, Connecticut, convicted for the 2011 murder of Angel Gonzalez and the subsequent act of cannibalism. In 2012, the city of Bridgeport, Connecticut was shaken by the discovery of Angel Gonzalez's mutilated body inside a vacant apartment. Investigators revealed that he had been killed with a hatchet, and the brutality of the scene stunned even veteran detectives. Police soon connected the crime to Tyrese Smith, whose own cousin testified that Smith told her he had eaten part of Gonzalez's brain and an eyeball while drinking sake. The confession became one of the most disturbing elements of the case, and it framed the legal battle that would follow. By 2013, Smith's mental state became the central issue in court. Psychiatrists described him as severely schizophrenic, suffering from both hallucinations and delusions worsened by alcohol and drug disorders. The court ultimately found him not guilty by reason of insanity and ordered him confined to Whiting Forensic Hospital, Connecticut's only maximum security psychiatric facility. The commitment period was set at 60 years, reflecting the extreme nature of the crime and the risk he posed. During the original hearings, Smith's behavior was flat and withdrawn, and he showed little visible emotion, when the judge announced his confinement. More than a decade later, the Psychiatric Security Review Board held a hearing to evaluate whether Smith continued to require maximum security hospitalization. A treating psychiatrist testified that Smith's schizophrenia and substance-related disorders were now in full remission due to medication, therapy, and ongoing supervision. The psychiatrist also noted that Smith had already spent 9 months in a community residential program with around-the-clock monitoring, and during that time he displayed no signs of psychosis, aggression, or instability. Based on this progress, the hospital requested that Smith be formally discharged under conditional release, meaning he would remain supervised, but would no longer reside inside the maximum security facility. The hearing drew strong emotional responses. Angel Gonzalez's sister-in-law, Talitha Frazier, questioned whether Smith's progress was real or simply hidden. She asked how anyone could truly know he would not do something like this again. Her concerns reflected the deep trauma still felt by the family more than 12 years after the killing. Several Connecticut state senators also condemned the proposal, calling the possibility of Smith's release outrageous and mind-boggling. They argued that allowing him back into a community setting sent the wrong message to victims of violent crime and posed a risk to public safety. Smith attended the hearing virtually with his attorney, though he was not shown on video due to safety concerns tied to media coverage. Observers who heard his voice described him as calm and controlled, offering brief responses and thanking the board for reviewing his case. After considering testimony and treatment evaluations, the board granted conditional release, making his transfer to the community program official. The decision immediately reignited debate about the insanity system and whether someone responsible for such a horrific act could ever be safely reintegrated into society. These cases show the extremes of human behavior and the challenges courts face when dealing with severe mental illness, disturbing delusions, and acts that defy comprehension. If you found this case-by-case breakdown informative, make sure to like, share, and subscribe for more detailed courtroom examinations.